And welcome to An Hour with the Candidates on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a production of the Libertarian Party. Dan Fishman, executive producer. My name is Pat Ford. I currently serve as chair of the Libertarian Party of Rhode Island, as well as the Rhode Island campaign director for the Joe Jorgensen 2020 campaign. We've been on a brief hiatus as I had the opportunity, the blessed opportunity, a life-affirming opportunity, if you will, to spend a few days on the road with the Joe Jorgensen campaign bus. And then on top of everything else, literally like the cherry on the top of the ice cream sundae, none other than Spike Cohen visited us here in Providence, Rhode Island for the second time in as many weeks. A brief reflection on the Jorgensen campaign.
Hey guys, I think we go ahead. Keep going, Pat.
With the Major League season. That was really my experience with the Jorgensen campaign. A great staff, a libertarian staff, developing expertise in-house on how to run literally a 47-state tour. Imagine that. While one candidate of the duopoly was literally hiding in the bunker, and well, the other one should have. Joe Jorgensen and Spike Cohen have literally traversed the entire nation, spreading a libertarian message at a level heretofore thought impossible. I got involved on a 2.5-day, 7-city tour covering Maine, and of course, very importantly, the 1st congressional district in Maine, which has got its own electoral vote, across New Hampshire and Vermont as well. It's a time that I will cherish always. The teamwork on the staff has been phenomenal. I had the opportunity to go out and do site locations with 3 great state chairs, 3 great state affiliates. And of course, I'm talking about New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont, who did outstanding jobs in helping us with site selection. Then I got to join Seth Levy, who is a man on fire, if you will, touring the site selected, making the final choice, giving us some tips on everything from permitting to how to set up that magnificent tour bus. And then we actually got to do it. And so for 2 or 3 weeks, I got to crisscross New England in pursuit of liberty. I want to thank the Joe Jorgensen staff and the team there for making me feel like I was part of the team, for really extending themselves, fighting for liberty, taking it to the streets in a manner that I haven't seen really in the 10, 12 years that I've been involved with the movement. It was truly an experience that I will treasure always. And of course, Aaron Adams, my mentor, I hope I did you proud. At least I hope I did you fairly good. We had media at every single stop. We had press people, live TV, journalists, again, performing the act that a presidential candidate needs to do, which is giving us a national platform from which we can use to support, well, here we are tonight with our down ballot candidates. Thanks again to Joe, to Spike, and the entire team for letting me be part of their effort. Truly amazing. We've got a few purposes for the show tonight. We want to give the Libertarian Party and the Libertarian community an opportunity to meet our wonderful down ballot candidates. For a number of years, the knock, I think unfairly, quite frankly, has been that we never developed a quote-unquote bench where we got candidates involved on a professional level, candidates who ran professional campaigns, candidates who won professional campaigns, so that they could get the experience at the city and the town and the state level to govern, to really make them better candidates, if you will, with experience and networks and organizations to bring them up to the national level. And my experience over the last few months of doing this show has been to say, well, balderdash. We have outstanding men and women running candidacies for every office imaginable across these United States. From a Metropolitan Transit Authority in Colorado, to town councils, to water boards, to governorships, state senators, state representatives. Again, across the country, people are extending themselves in manners which are nothing less than heroic in order to develop our civil liberty. The other purpose of tonight is, of course, we want to challenge each candidate to bring what we call lunch pail issues to the table, but through an all-important libertarian perspective. You know, years ago, Bill Clinton talked about it's the economy, stupid. Well, right now you can debate it's the COVID stupid, it's the economy stupid, it's our international affairs stupid, it's the ending all wars stupid, it's the end the drug war stupid. Whatever your personal interpretation of it is, our candidates can do that and do that effectively. The common response I got on the tour from media people was a surprise, almost shocked response from media, because time and again they told me, and I'm the New England media coordinator for the tour and for the campaign, that they ask libertarian questions and the candidates, you ready for this? They answer them. Not just with platitudes, not just with nonsense, not just with white noise, but they answer them with specifics. Exactly how, as libertarians, we will improve the lives of the people in our constituencies in a manner that veteran reporters haven't seen really in a generation. There's a nobility there, folks. And we need, despite the ferocity of this campaign, despite the challenges, the disappointments that we run into as libertarians, we need to embrace those types of victories. And there will be more to come. And finally, what we try to do is create a bond between the different affiliates. I have incredible respect, after my experience on the campaign, for what people in Vermont and New Hampshire and Maine not only attempting to do, but actually accomplishing. Whether it be issues revolving around global warming and all of these crazy tax schemes for carbon taxes, as my good friend JT Dodge delivered so effectively in a speech during the tour, whether it be an assessment of the government's responsibilities during this COVID crisis, as Mr. Manzo did in New Hampshire, or was a highly energized Nick Sarwark did when he talked about the war on drugs and when he talked about the responsibilities of a prosecutor, as he did in Manchester, New Hampshire. That feeling, that trust, that responsibility, that those issues need to be shared around the nation so that we can recognize the efforts of these candidates and know that someone running, for example, a county attorney or former chairman in New Hampshire is as important to the movement as, if you will, tonight's guest, Rick Stewart, who's running to be your next Iowa senator. I believe we've accomplished that and more this campaign season. We've got a few weeks left, and we're going to be working overtime to bring a few more candidates to you in the run-up. But I want to take this opportunity to introduce to you for the first time Rick Stewart. He is running to be your United States Senator in Iowa. Rick, welcome to An Hour with the Candidates.
Well, thank you very much. I totally appreciate the opportunity to speak to your viewers, and looking forward to a great conversation. I've been out on the campaign trail pretty much daily since we recovered from the derecho. That would have been about August 12th, I think, and meeting a lot of Iowa voters, being on a lot of TV stations here in Iowa, a lot of radio stations, interviewing at newspapers. And it's a lot of fun to be out here spreading the libertarian message in Iowa, which I think is a state that's slowly but surely catching on fire.
Well, I've had the opportunity over the last few years to meet a number of the folks from Iowa in the variety of county affiliates. And yeah, there's a passion there. There's an energy there that's made the Iowa organization one of the tops in the country. Tell us a little about yourself, though. And we always preface the conversation with one almost standard question, and that was, at what point in your moment in your life did you recognize that you were a libertarian? When did that light bulb go up over your head? Was there a single event or moment that made you recognize that while it might have been a lot easier for you to join the duopoly and use your talents there, that it was in fact you were ready to take on the fight for liberty?
Yeah, no, I know exactly when the moment was for me. I joined the Gary Johnson parade in 2012 by trying to get the Commission on Presidential Debates to get him into the debates. And I actually drove all the way from Iowa to Washington and spent 3 weeks there. I opened an office next to the CPD. Actually, that was, of course, a computer in a coffee shop, but it was my office. I spent 3 weeks trying to figure out how to get Gary into the debates. And during that process, one thing I learned was our competitors are not what you might call smart. They're just established. They're entrenched. They know the game of politics. Actually, now I call it the business of politics. And I realized that if we were going to ever crack the CPD, we needed to stand together. I couldn't do anything by myself. So I joined the National Libertarian Party the fall of 2012. The Iowa Libertarian Party, I went to their first state convention in 2013. And I've been a member of both the national and state parties ever since. I think I was a libertarian a long time before that, but I always thought it was small L. I wasn't a party person. But that experience trying to get the CPD to just be rational severely changed my life for the better, because I have found the Libertarian Party, both at the national and the state levels, to be my real home.
Let's talk about Iowa. You know, most of us, and I've had the opportunity, as I mentioned to you off air, to visit Iowa on a number of times. It is a very important part of the country, not just because of the obvious agricultural connection, corn and all that. A lot of folks may not realize that it is one of the digital hubs in America, that there is a network of fiber optic crossings, if you will, that have helped grow a technology sector in Iowa that many aren't aware of. But what are the issues? You know, and so often when we have these conversations with down ballot candidates, we talk about the pre-COVID and the new reality. So talk about the economy in Iowa and give us a snapshot of it, what it was, well, just a few short 7 or 8 months ago. What were the pressing issues then?
Well, Iowa, of course, went into the same kind of I guess lockdown. In Iowa, it was mostly voluntary, that everybody else did back in March. So that's like number one that anybody wants to talk about. But before that, when Trump put the tariffs on China retaliated by putting tariffs on American soybeans, most of which come from Iowa. And the price of soybeans, I think, dropped, I forget exactly how much, but a couple of dollars a bushel as soon as that was announced. And that really hits at the core of our economy, because we're an ag state, and all of we really only have two big crops, corn and soybeans. To have the price for soybeans cut out from underneath them by the Trump tariffs against China really was a wake-up call for Iowa farmers and also for the entire state. We are really hurting in the farm sector, and that's the biggest part of our economy.
Absolutely. It brought to light a scenario which I still can't quite reconcile. If I understand this correctly, Trump, in order to fight China, raised tariffs. And as a result, as you mentioned, it decimated the farm sector in two key areas. So in order to make it up to the farmers, he instituted some sort of bailout in the form of, allegedly, and maybe you can confirm this for me, for cash payments, which were, of course, funded by money that we effectively borrowed from China. Can that possibly be true, as twisted as that sounds?
Well, that's true, all right. That's absolutely what happened. Those retaliatory tariffs from China just tore the heart out of the farm economy. I will just make one point. The Chinese didn't suffer as much as we did in America. 330 million Americans paying more for just about everything. Excuse me. But, the Chinese just went around the world and started buying soybeans from other countries, which Americans, we have a hard time just automatically picking up what we need from other countries, slowly but surely, of course. But China, it's interesting. They suffered so much less from our tariffs than we suffered from their tariffs. It's just what you'd expect from a tariff war. You have two losers, and who pays the price? The citizens of the people that live in those countries. I think every Iowan figured out, oh, this tariff stuff, this is not a game that we play for free. This is a game which comes right out of our pocketbook.
Right. If I can quote something that you and I being roughly the same generation, as Pogo once said, "I have seen the enemy, and he is us." Talk about a self-inflicted economic gunshot wound. And this is critical because you are running for the United States Senate, and one of the challenges as a grassroots movement like the Libertarian Party is we sometimes conflate issues between the incorrect levels of attack. As United States Senator, you will be able to address these directly. So I just want to repeat, is a tariff a fee on the Chinese, or is it a tax on Americans?
I have said this at least 1,000 times in my campaigning. No Chinese has ever paid an American tariff. All those tariffs are paid by Americans, and they don't notice it because it's pennies on the dollar, but it's an enormous amount of money, and not one Chinese dollar has paid a tariff. It's only Americans that have paid for those tariffs.
Why do you think this sort of cognitive dissonance is in effect with Americans? I mean, how did we get to a point as a society where our understanding of, really fundamental economics, this is the type of economics issue that the minimum wage and are things you study as a senior in high school or a freshman in college. What's happened? And do you think folks possibly, and sadly, I would say, because of the personal nature of this particular tariff, which essentially weaponized American foreign trade policy against Iowans, are Iowans aware of this and fully, and what impact has it had on electoral politics in Iowa?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think it's had a huge impact at all here in Iowa because people don't understand. They don't understand the fundamentals of economics that you and I learned a long time ago. And I don't think that they're particularly interested in learning those economics. I haven't heard either of my opponents go hard against tariffs as a blight on the American economy. They prefer talking around it. They prefer talking about how much subsidies can we get for the ethanol industry, which of course ethanol is made from corn. Iowa grows corn. We have huge ethanol plants, probably none of which would exist if it weren't for government subsidies. Right. Iowans are just, I think they're average, and they don't understand that you can't play a game of raising the price on your own people and expect to win. It's just like one or two steps beyond either their ability or their willingness to think a little bit deeper on the issues than the surface headlines. So I know every farmer knows, but the individual Iowa voters, as a rule, they do not understand. We picked a fight with somebody that we can't possibly win. And not only that, we don't even play it as well as the Chinese. I have to say this: I admire the Chinese for being a better players in the tariff game than we are.
It's amazing. Now, interestingly enough, and it was reported in the Des Moines Register, you've had quite a presence recently from cabinet members of President Trump. President Trump has made campaign stops to Iowa. Let's just say young son Donald, never mind. 4 of Trump's cabinet secretaries have visited central Iowa and made appearances, I guess, with your Republican governor, Kim Reynolds. She ain't my governor. We got our own problems here in Rhode Island. You've got Health and Human Services. You've got Housing and Urban Development. Listen, agriculture people might as well have just set up a permanent camp there. What's the message on the failed Republican status delivery of poor economic planning to Iowa that they're trying to perpetrate and perpetuate on you folks?
Well, that's a tough question. I have yet to figure out why any of the the Democrats and the Republicans have really opened their mouths to talk about anything. But both of them are basically saying Washington needs to give us more money. They need to give us more money for mental health. They need to give us more money for farm subsidies. They need to give us more money for Medicare for all. They need to give us more money for disaster relief. Every time they open their mouth, they're just saying, we need more money. And they're accusing each other of not fighting hard enough to get money out of Washington. My reply is always the same. You can't send $1 to Washington and expect to get $1 back. Washington, they only have two ways to get money. They tax us or they print money. And both of those are not conducive to a good, strong economic policy or economy. Iowans, at this point in time, sometimes I think we've turned into a beggar state. And the only thing we know how to do is to go to Washington for money. Now, I do want to say this: our state itself is fairly fiscally responsible. We're conservative. We don't spend more than we have. We argue about where it should go. We argue about how high taxes should be. But when it comes to Washington, apparently the candidates think that there's a huge money pot that's free, and all you have to do is beg hard enough, and then you're going to get a handout from Washington. It's absolutely remarkable to me that just seems to be the way the candidates themselves are talking. When I meet individual Iowans, and I meet hundreds, and I think I'm well over 1,000 now, they don't really think that way. I preach that Iowa should be responsible for Iowans. And they say, well, yeah, of course, that just makes sense. We can't expect Illinois or Mississippi or Texas to pay for Iowans. But the politicians seem to think that Washington can pay for everything. And so you have to go there, get down on your hands and knees, put your hands together and say prayers to the great Almighty God in Washington, which is Congress and the president. Send us money, send us money. That's what the politicians talk about. But not the average Iowan. The average Iowan understands that you can't spend $2 every time you take in $1 in taxes. It's unsustainable, and it's a bad idea.
I want to use a term that we haven't heard in a while. This was a term that was in rotation regularly back in 08, 09, back in the Great Recession, and that was moral hazard. If in fact we're able to routinely print literally trillions of dollars, it was just a year or so ago that folks like the Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, presidential candidate at the time, would say things like, we need to wipe out student loans. And people would look at him like he was insane because of the trillions of dollars that we've spent and would have to spend in order to do so. Yet, given our decision to engage in that behavior in response to the COVID nightmare, have we finally, at this point, from our society, eliminated all the moral hazards related to any of this behavior? Have we gone past the Paul, literally gone past the final step now? Is there any turnaround at this point?
Well, I hope there is a turnaround, because we're going to hit a brick wall. And when we hit that brick wall, it is going to hurt everybody very, very hard. Honestly, I think Iowans understand that you can't do that. I think they get it, that printing money is not a solution to anybody's problems. But at the same time, I haven't heard anybody that said, I don't want another stimulus check. It's when Washington says we'll give you a $1,200 check. By the way, it's a $6,300 bill I'm going to give you later. People are very susceptible to that, and I think it's going to take it's going to take a revolution in understanding that that's just not something you can do forever, and we need to provide for ourselves, and the government needs to provide for itself through taxes. It can't just keep on spending money left and right like it is now. But the politicians apparently there's the people that are going to always vote in Iowa. they're always going to vote Republican. There's the people who are always going to vote Democrat. And there's a few people in the middle that are going to be persuaded one way or the other. I don't know. Apparently, the political pollsters have figured out that you can just promise them anything, including in the same breath you can say we're going to lower taxes and we're going to spend more money. And those people in the middle apparently get swayed to believe either the expensive Democrats or the even right now more expensive Republicans. I don't know. I really don't get it, because that's not the people that I meet. I meet people that seem very open-minded and very honest, and they get it. And of course, most of them say they're going to vote for me. So I don't know what that means, but I have not had any problem in anything I've done in Iowa with simple explanations that we have to live within our means. And when times are tough, you have to tighten your belt. You don't loosen it. You don't go to out to dinner when your credit card is maxed. So I really don't understand.
On a personal statewide note, if you grew up and if you were a child of the 60s and 70s, you understand that Iowa was literally the center, I think, of one of the great sports in American history. And of course, I'm talking about wrestling. And when I saw that Dan Gable got up on a podium with Donald Trump, wow. I mean, for folks of our generation, Senator, Dan Gable was this sort of mythic figure in a real sport, not that football stuff, right? But in a real sport where it was the ultimate one-on-one competition. As libertarians, we embrace it, right? We support the rights of the ultimate minority, the individual. So an individual going one-on-one with another individual is something that I find noble. What was Dan Gable thinking?
Well, you're talking to a wrestler. Dan's only a few years older than me. Yeah, I was a wrestler.
Excellent.
He was only a few years older than me, and he was my idol. I've met Dan on several occasions and talked to him. I read his book, and I was hoping he would just take Trump down with a double leg takedown, turn him on his back and pin him, and then have the referee slap the mat and say, "You are done, Donald." But that's not what happened. People seem to be thinking that there's only two alternatives in the entire universe. And if you don't vote for my guy, then it's going to be Armageddon when the other guy wins. I don't get it. I need to go backwards and say, Pat, we're not the same age. Okay. You are clearly about 20 years younger than I am. But my baby boomer generation, the problem is we were a great generation when we were younger because we broke a lot of things that needed to be broken. But then a few years later, we got jobs. We cut off our bell bottoms and we shaved and cut our hair and put on a white shirt. And then we went to a middle class job and we just started living as if the rest of the world didn't matter. We have left an entire 2 and now 3 generations of our youngsters to pay off a debt that we were just ignoring as if it never had to be paid off. I'm embarrassed at baby boomers, and to be perfectly honest, my personal friends that are baby boomers, they're still my friends, and I just have to shake my head and walk away, though, because the younger generation is the people that are going to be paying our debts, and the younger generation, I think, is very enthusiastic. They're willing to talk about change. Of course, they're not worried about not getting their Social Security. I haven't yet met a younger person who thinks they're going to get $1 in Social Security. Now, when they're 65, they probably think it'll be there. But right now, today, they don't think they're going to get it. That's clear thinking because they aren't going to get it. They're just going to get the bill. And I think that they're going to break the promise that I made. I promised them that they had to pay for me. I think they're going to break my promise. I think they're smarter than that. I hope they are. I mean, obviously something's going to happen, and it's not going to be a continuation of the status quo. And of course, Dan Gable and I will probably be long gone. But the debt that we have run up by being irresponsible baby boomers is absolutely phenomenal.
Folks, if you're just joining us, Rick Stewart, he is the Libertarian candidate for Senate, the United States Senate in the great state of Iowa, a long-standing Libertarian, a warrior willing to take on really some of the highest levels of power. We've been talking about issues surrounding subsidies, tariffs, moral hazards, really the great issues of the day. Folks, you're listening to An Hour with the Candidates on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television. My name is Pat Ford, executive producer Dan Fishman. Rick, let's talk about your interests. You're elected to the United States Senate. We all understand that as freshman senators, you're often appointed to the housing board for, the Greater Alaska Air Force Command or something like that. You start off, if you will, in the basement, and you earn your way up. I'm not sure that's a system that works or is fair, because it just seems to encourage lifetime senatorships. And, I live in Rhode Island, where Jack Reed has been a fixture, if you will, in the Defense Department as long as I can remember, which is a really long time. And despite being a graduate, if you will, of the United States Military Academy at West Point, he has cheered on the U.S. military industrial complex to new lows, if you will, in spending bazillions, if that's a term, bazillions of dollars. What do you think about things like term limits? And as or most importantly, once you're given an opportunity to move into different areas, different boards, different committees, what is your passion? What's the big issue, the big picture that you like to pursue as a United States Senator?
Well, the biggest thing that I am in this race for is to end the drug war. I've been fighting against the drug war since the early 90s. I was against it before that, but when I finally read an article in the Journal of Economic Perspectives by an economist explaining the mechanics of why the drug war can't work, won't work, will never work, then I'm like, oh, now I understand the fundamental problem here. So ever since then, I've been fighting the drug war extremely hard. I ran for sheriff 4 years ago, and I put ads up in Washington, D.C. Anybody that wants to see them can just go to my YouTube channel. It's RWSCID. You can get there by Googling Rick Stewart, Iowa Sheriff. I put 4 ads up in Washington, D.C. on cable television. I think I ran 350 of them over the course of 4 weeks in October when Congress was in session, and I directly attacked the drug war in every single one. It turns out that I got some press. I think it was The Hill, but it might have been Roll Call. I forget who wrote a fantastic article. The only errors that they made were in my favor because they estimated that my ads cost $2,800 a piece, and the reality was they cost about I think it was $46 a piece. But then I took those ads. I came back to Iowa. I ran those ads in my county over and over and over. I ran radio ads that were anti-drug war, and I had a very, very active Facebook page with a big budget by my standards. Not by Democratic or Republican standards, but by my standards, I put a lot of my own money into the anti-drug war, and I'm going to devote the rest of my life to being anti-drug war, because to me, it's the worst sin of Congress. Is something which not only cost us an enormous amount of money, clearly hasn't worked, but had the additional effect of ruining millions of Black lives. When I think about Black Lives Matter, I think about the drug war. And I'm not sure why they don't press that point, because if you want to end racism in America, that's going to take a long time. I don't know how to end racism in America. I don't know how to end systemic racism in America, but I know how to end the drug war. You just don't operate it anymore. And that could be done in almost with the stroke of the presidential pen.
Right.
If they reclassified marijuana. That is my passion. Get rid of the drug war. When I'm on the campaign trail, I have a lot of other things I talk about, but that always rises to the surface because really that's why I'm here. I supported Gary Johnson because of his attitude towards marijuana, and I'm still here today because I've learned so much about the drug war and the drugs themselves. And I'll be honest. If I don't win this race, and I still think there's a chance I can, on November 4th, the day after the election, I'm going to start a 1-year campaign in Iowa to end the drug war. And it's going to be just as active as my presidential campaign. I'm going to be all over the state. I've got a huge plan in my head. It's not going to cost me $1 million. I am going to attack the drug war. And then I'm coming back in 2022. I've already unofficially announced to the Libertarians to run for governor so we can get 2% and get ballot access again. Or not ballot access. It's like ballot access, but we've become a major party in Iowa. I hate the drug war, period. There is no excuse for it. It needs to be completely ended, and we need to rationalize our approach to every single recreational substance. I'm sorry, I get a little emotional when I talk about this.
No, there's again, I agree with you 1000%. Simply declassifying or decategorizing, whatever term you want to use, cannabis, as well as other drugs, from the DEA. Perhaps I can think of no other action which would have more profound impact immediately, within minutes, the world begins to change. We stop the pressure on our borders, which I'm not a big fan of either, but we stop the pressure. We stop narco-terrorism in its tracks. We stop offshoring our drug production to foreign countries who have neither the military, the police, the strength, if you will, in terms of their governmental structures to deal with the side effects of it. We end a health crisis. We stop shaming people who through illness are susceptible to and ultimately become dependent on cannabis or not cannabis. I'm sorry, on other addictive drugs. I mean, on just 1,000 levels, you're absolutely right. And that's, I just want to jump aside for a second. The nobility of down ballot, and I hate to call the United States Senate a down ballot race, but the nobility of our races, even though at times we face difficult odds, are the effects of individuals like our guest tonight, who with a passion that cannot be found in the duopoly, because the duopoly has been bought and sold, and there's no passion when you've been bought, but with a passion, deliver common sense responses and solutions to the issues that seem so insurmountable when you're left in a room full of the duopoly. There's a hopelessness and a callousness that the duopoly has infected our body politic with. Would you agree?
Well, yeah. I mean, the Democrats wouldn't even vote, take a vote when it was in the Democratic platform 4 years ago. I haven't looked at it this year. I'm pretty sure it's still there. It was in the Democratic platform to legalize marijuana. They will not even vote on that to reschedule it 4 years later because they are so afraid of what I don't know. It's absolutely unbelievable that the politicians will turn their back on anything that's controversial and that might lose them 1 or 2 votes or possibly an election. The cowardice of their actions, and of course the Republicans, they need to be dragged along, but I mean, it's just such a cowardly thing not to stand up and tell the truth to the American people when they all know it. Have you ever noticed how many world leaders have persecuted the drug war, and as soon as they're out of office, they suddenly, the light shines from above and they discover that it's a bad idea? That is such hypocrisy. They just don't have a backbone today. The politicians that I observe have absolutely no backbone whatsoever. And that I just find that shameful. I want to backtrack just a little bit, and I'll tell you,
Sure.
When I'm in the United States Senate, I'm going to be talking to 99 other senators, and I'm going to be pursuing 2 things that I pursued during my business career, and that is build consensus and solve problems and forget about the politics. Let's get together and build a consensus and solve problems one at a time, because that's what government should be about. It should not be about fighting with the guy that's in the other party. I just find that unbelievable. When I had a pretty successful business, and I went to work every day. I solved problems and built consensus. That's what made it successful, and that's what is not happening in Congress, and that's why it's unsuccessful. That's why they just sit there and I don't know. I mean, I think I might have to wear a face mask in Congress to avoid being spit upon when the Democrats and the Republicans are talking to each other. But that's not the game I'm going to play. I'm not going to join either one of the caucuses. I am just going to go to Washington and start making friends in the Senate. And I'm going to have 99 people that are not going to be afraid of me, and I'm not going to be afraid of them. And we are going to talk to each other about building a consensus and solving problems. And I'm going to be a pleasant guy no matter what I am, who I am talking to. That's the only way to have good government.
Excellent. Just before we get to shameless self-promotion, I just wanted to mention one aside. Incredibly enough, and I just fact-checked myself, the Democratic National Committee Platform Committee rejected an amendment calling on the party to support marijuana legalization as an official 2020 policy blanket. You're right. They didn't even have the courage to pretend that they were going to move towards legalization. But this is the part of the show, we've only got a few minutes left, where we engage in what we call shameless self-promotion. And what I want you to do is share with us links, if you will, to where folks can contribute money, where folks can volunteer in these next few weeks. The beauty of some of the systems set up by our national party and by the presidential campaign is this ability to do nationwide call banking. We've got Jackie Perry has done an astonishing job of managing a literally a nationwide footprint with texting. In a couple of cases, when she's sent out text for the Rhode Island party, she brought people from multiple states to the shores of Rhode Island, if you will, to support libertarian guests and libertarian candidates. It's breathtaking to watch. But Rick, how can folks reach out to you, volunteer, donate, just do the work that needs to be done? Did we lose Rick?
Donate button.
Okay.
And you will be given the opportunity to give me money. And of course, I appreciate every penny that anybody gives. When I was at the Libertarian National Convention in Orlando, I stood up, I gave a little bit of a speech, and I said, will you just throw $5 into the pot? And I had, I think 125 people that did exactly that. You might think that $5 is not a lot of money, but it's easy. When I am driving my pickup truck in my very colorful campaign trailer around the state of Iowa, I spend $100 a day in gas. Your $5 gets me from one town to the next. So if you would just put $5 into the pot, then I will go one town further. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I'm not going to do it if you don't put $5 in the pot. I'm going to spend my own money. Okay, I've spent plenty of my own money, and I'm going to spend as much as it takes. I've already driven 7,000 miles at 9.5 miles in Iowa, and in the next 2 weeks, I am going to probably drive another 2, maybe 3,000 miles more. But money is what is the grease that makes the machine run. And if you can throw $5 into the pot, and if you can give more, hey, trust me, I take it all the way up to $2,800. But it's completely appreciated. But I also want to say this: if you have, don't put $5 in my pot unless you put $5 in Joe's pot. Okay. Joe needs the money. She's out there. She cannot fund, she probably can't even pay for the money for her own bus, because that's a lot more expensive than my pickup truck and my trailer. She needs money, okay? So 5 for me and 5 for Joe. Let's make this happen. Let's make this campaign season one where we shine. And as we've all seen, the other parties are not shining, and we need to shine. And money is what makes us shine. That's just the way it works. I apologize. I wish that it wasn't that way. My opponents, each of them is spending $75 million. And the message that I take to the media, because that's what the emphasis of my campaign, I've been on 14 TV stations in Iowa. There's 11 left. I'm going to get at least half of them. I've already been on 15 radio stations. There's 25 left. I'm going to be on about 22 of those. I interview at newspapers all across the state. 6 years ago, I interviewed with 200 newspapers in Iowa, and they print my story. They take a picture of my campaign trailer, and they put the word out there. And I've done pretty well in Iowa. 2 years ago, I got 3% of the vote. But money makes things work. So, yeah, please dig into your pocket and don't give me a dime unless you give Joe a dime, because she needs the money too. We need to take that libertarian message out there. We've got 2 weeks and a couple days left. That it really, really helps. It really counts. So I appreciate everything that anybody does. And just one more thing. If you want to learn more about me, it's pretty easy. You don't have to just stop at the campaign website, because, I had to limit myself to, a few words and stuff. But just Google Rick Stewart, Iowa Sheriff. You will find more than you ever want to know about me. And if you find things that you disagree with, you can just email me directly, rick@rickstewart.com. And trust me, you'll get a personal response from me. I always respond to just about everything that anybody does, whether it's a Facebook comment or a tweet or a comment on my YouTube videos or emails. I'm like 100% on. Get in touch with me if there's something that you disagree with. But money makes the campaigns work. That's the way politics is. I say all the time on the trail, I say, if I had $1 million, I'd win this race. So, the only reason that Iowans aren't voting for me is because they haven't heard of me and they haven't heard of the Libertarian Party. We are making that happen one voter at a time, and that takes money. I appreciate anything you can get.
What a great analogy. What a great way to look at it. You literally, you think about how often you go to the gas station. Put $5 in. Well, put $5 into our guest tonight, Rick Stewart's tank. And that message of liberty goes to yet another town. And again, you just don't know. I've often talked on this show on how my introduction to the Libertarian Party was on a late night call-in radio show when I got to talk to some guy named Gary Johnson. You just don't know the lives you change when you're a candidate, when you work for a candidate, you volunteer for a candidate, you reach out and have a conversation or an exchange of ideas with someone who may never have met a libertarian. It may not even be part of their experience. And just also, and I'll speak for the candidates across the country, when someone from Rhode Island sends a guy in Iowa, or a young lady who's running for office in Wyoming gets a check from somebody in Texas, I can't state strongly enough the psychological boost that gives the candidate. All of a sudden you look at yourself and you realize that there are people from around these United States who understand and appreciate your effort, your contribution. They support your message, and they have at heart, in your hearts, what these folks are doing. I'll close off with the thought tonight that I often do, which is that I look upon candidates for office as really our nation's greatest heroes. The personal extension, the sacrifice they make, time away from family, sometimes the challenges that they're given in public because they represent what is clearly for many an unpopular thought, the notion of, again, supporting the individual rights of the individual, of self-ownership, of walking back society from government. That's a powerful mission, regardless of what level you take it. And Rick, I want to thank you for joining literally the hundreds, if not more, libertarian candidates around this nation who are making that type of sacrifice. Rick Stewart, he's running for the United States Senate in the great state of Iowa. He can be found at rickstewart.com. Listen, volunteer, make some phone calls, spend a few bucks, maybe one less trip to Dunkies or to $5, whatever. It can have an unimaginable impact when a nation like the United States is as fundamentally challenged as it today. Folks, you've been listening to An Hour with the Candidates on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television. My name is Pat Ford, and I'd like to thank you for joining us. Folks, look to the LP Facebook page this week. We're going to go into a little bit of a stint, if you will, of having a couple of candidates back who are from the very beginning and who have, in a couple of cases, managed to attain national recognition for their campaigns, as well as a few more new people that you may not have met before, but who are literally waging war on your behalf in the battle of liberty. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you during the week.